The devastation caused by the flooding stretched across the city far and wide over the weekend. Few places escaped completely unscathed. From as far north as Wetherby to Harewood, Poolbank and Otley, and to Leeds and Kirkstall, Rivers Wharfe and Ayr did their damage. In Wetherby, amidst continuous heavy rain, a severe flood on the banks of the wharf caused the ground around the leisure centre to be completely underwater, with a fast-moving current to boot. So deep was the water here that the goalposts were barely visible, with the centre dangerously close to the river's edge. And on Boston Road over the bridge, a landslide caused by the volume of water closed the bridge in both directions, whilst the ferocity and depth of the water below was all too visible. Of course, the city centre didn't escape. The air too was merciless in its destruction as bars and properties flooded. Down in Kirkstall in the morning, eerie signs of what was to follow. The area became completely inaccessible. Today, the area around the Ayr looked back to normal. The river still high, but nowhere near the level it has been before. But it's not business as usual. The Adelphi pub, for example, overlooks the Ayr, and pumps were still hard at work today. But serious questions are now being asked about why this city was so unprepared. It's questions that leader of the council, Judith Blake, wants to address.
The real tragedy of this is that it was predictable. The last event, the water very nearly came over in the same way as this. We just avoided it then, and we predicted that this was a disaster waiting to happen. As a result, we worked with the Environment Agency and came up with a scheme covering the whole of the River Ayr, going through the city centre up to Kirkstall and beyond. Fortunately, in 2011, the coalition government pulled the funding for that scheme. We fought back and said we needed something for the city centre. We have a scheme going in place at the moment, but for phase 2 and 3, which would cover the likes of Kirkstall, absolutely no funding in place. These are the urgent conversations that we are going to be having with government about getting the whole of the scheme back on track and making sure that we do everything we can to prevent the scenes that we've had here over the weekend.
Strong words indeed from Blake. Meanwhile, Prime Minister David Cameron, who was visiting York today, said flood barriers don't always do enough and confirmed a review of government spending on the issue. But the city and Yorkshire has faced unprecedented rain. Floodgates in York had to be lifted to stop further damage. It was the lesser of two evils. Could the same have happened to Leeds then, regardless of any barriers?
I think there are certain areas that it would be very difficult, and in the scheme with such unprecedented rainfall, to put the protection in place. But there are particular pinch points along the way where you can predict that they will be very vulnerable and at high risk, and those are the areas that we really have to focus on. And this is across the whole of the north now. We're not just talking about Leeds. We need to sit down with government and say, look, the north needs its share of the funding.
In Kirkstall today, community spirit aplenty at the Bridge Inn. Here the clean-up was well underway. With the pub so close to the River Ayr here, it was all too obvious what was going to happen. 5 foot of water entered the downstairs, whilst the beer garden outside was destroyed or washed away. Sandbags neither use nor ornament here. And yet in the face of adversity comes hope. Many came down here to lend a hand to get a business much loved by the local community back on its feet.
It's just unbelievable, really, and the local council has been amazing in terms of Lucinda from the Labour Council did tweeted that the pub needed help and asked for volunteers, and then, as you can see, we've had 50, 60 people here cleaning up, and we just couldn't have done it without them. And it just shows that the spirit of human kindness and the willingness to help people in a crisis is still there, and I found it really quite heartening. When you have a pub by the riverside, you probably expect these kind of things, but on this scale, no. I mean, we expected maybe a little bit of water coming in, but not 5 feet of water. I mean, that was just unbelievable. And we do have a flood defence wall here, as you can see, but it came completely over the top of it. It was just unprecedented, really.
Kirkstall Road remained closed today as the clean-up continued. It'll be some time yet before things return completely to normal. Whether the rain has been down to changes in the weather or simply a once-in-a-generation freak event, it's changes to the way we handle floods that people affected across Leeds will be wanting now.